started. Welcome, folks. I know we have some great folks with me here today to talk about our Community and Multicultural Development Office. We'll start with some introductions, but our focus of today's event is to highlight one of the ways that we create and build an intentionally diverse community here. And one of those ways is through CAMD, like I mentioned, the Community and Multicultural Development Office. And as you'll probably realize in many of our events, we use a lot of vocab and lingo, and CAMD is the short form for our Community Multicultural Development Office. So you'll hear that a lot. So we have our director of the CAMD office here with us today, Dr. Tsemo, who will introduce herself shortly. But I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Jessica Acosta Chavez. I work in the admission office, primarily focusing on DEI outreach, so diversity, equity, and inclusion outreach. I live here on campus in a girls' dorm, an 11th and 12th grade girls' dorm. And I'm also an alum of the school. So I was a boarding student when I was here many years ago now on the other side. And I'm an advisor to some of the girls in my dorm as well. And I am going to pass off the mic to my colleagues here in the admission office as well. So I'll start off with Ms. Paltry, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Leela Poultry, Assistant Director of Admission. Also work with these lovely folks in DEI outreach on campus. I live in a girls 910 dorm. I have 15 wonderful, rambunctious students. I'm also an advisor to 10th graders. Outside of the admission office in the spring, I teach/coach dance. I'm also a club advisor for a few clubs on campus as well. But welcome. Thanks. Ti?
Just looking for the mute button. My voice is a little hoarse because I had a basketball game tonight and I was cheering on my team. So I am Terrell.
And you won.
We won our game. We won our game. So I am Terrell Ivory, but I go by Ti. I work in admissions also and do some work with the DEI outreach team. I also, like I said, I coach basketball. I also coach some JV tennis, and like everybody here, we do a little bit of everything at the school. So I teach a health and wellness class, which I love doing. And I'm also an academic advisor to 5 10th graders this year. And did I say this already, Jess? I'm an alum as well, a proud graduate of the school. It's been, 21 years. And I'm still, been working here 11 years and just love every bit of it. Love my colleagues that I can see on the screen. And I wish I could see your faces. So I can't wait to see you guys soon. And I'll pass it on to Ms. Tsemo.
Hi, my name is Dr. Tsemo, and this is actually the beginning of my 4th year at Phillips Academy. Sometimes people are like, it's only been 4 years. Once you become a member of Phillips Academy, you're just a member. And this is my 1st year as the director for Community and Multicultural Office, Development Office, what we call CAMD. It's been a really exciting year. I'm also an English instructor, and as an English instructor, I teach an elective class for seniors. It's an African American literature course. And each term it's different. Right now it's kind of chronological. We started with the literature written by the enslaved Blacks, and now we're doing some Harlem Renaissance stuff. And then we usually move to a contemporary writer. And I'm also a complement, which means that I live in my own house on campus, and then I go do dorm duty once a week. It keeps my one foot in residential life, which is what I really appreciate. So that's who I am, and I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about CAMD.
Thank you so much. So just a little housekeeping on how we're going to do our event today. Dr. Sam was going to give a little bit of an overview of what CAMD is, a little bit of the history, and what of the many things CAMD takes care of on campus, including some student groups, clubs, and affinity spaces and events, and actually scholarship opportunities as well for students. So she'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to invite actually some students who are CAMD student leaders and members of CAMD as well to talk about their experiences in CAMD and just as general Andover students as well. So once we have our students are joining now, but we'll kick off the panel in a little bit. And if you have questions that you want to ask our students, you can use, or Dr. Tsemo, you can use the Q&A feature to write up your questions there. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can. And hopefully you get to learn a little bit more about CAMD from the student perspective and from Dr. Tsemo as well. So Dr. Tsemo, I'll give the mic back to you. You can talk to us a little bit about what CAMD is.
First, I want to say hello to my two students who just dropped in. Hi, Chris. Hi, Paul Kishna. It's so nice to see you. I'm glad y'all are here. So CAMD, I think where I want to begin is at the beginning. CAMD is actually kind of the second iteration of a group specifically for students who are marginalized or have been marginalized historically at Phillips Academy, Andover. The first group actually about 55 years ago is called AFLATM, and AFLATM stands for African American and Latinx now. Students who were here mostly as financial aid students many, many years ago in the beginning of that kind of integration of those two groups, and found that their marginalized position made them feel like they had more in common with one another. It's a common theme. You're going to kind of hear Paul Kishna and Chris talk a little bit about that grouping. And so AFLATM, when I first came here, actually, they were having their 50th anniversary. So we're about at 55 years now for AFLATM. And then about 10 years after that, 15 years after that, the minority office opened, which was the first name of CAMD. That was also the first of now 6 directors. So there is some longevity. I think the shortest director before me was 6 years, but there were 5 directors before me. And the first one was in 1985, I think it was 1985. And that group saw that the numbers were growing and AFLATM was not sufficient just for the different kinds of diverse groups that were beginning to come in. And so that office was developed as a response to that. And since that time, and of course it's grown over the years, and our diversity at the school has grown, we have become an office that supports all students who are marginalized at our school. I'm not very good with the numbers exactly, but I believe that we're now at about 25% students of color, and that includes students who identify as Asian, students who identify as African American, and a plethora of others, including Latinx. And all of those groups find a home here in some way. CAMD houses more than 30 student organizations and groups. And of those 30, more than 30 groups, we have affinity spaces around race, around identities that involve gender and sexuality and religious as well, and any kind of that want to develop. Right now we have a curly hair group. So those are all people who decided that they wanted to talk about, what it means to have curly hair. And I love that group as one example because of the diversity of it. It's based on hair texture. So we have several groups that are growing. We now have a Caribbean group that's new to our office. Other kind of things that we have also is CAMD Scholars, and you can't see the details here, but here's one of the posters of our first CAMD Scholars. And it's a pretty prestigious role for students all across the campus. Students apply for this role, to be a CAMD Scholar. They choose a teacher to work with, they ask that teacher to work with them, and they research a topic that they're really interested in. Emiliano, for example, did a standing ovation program last week on magical realism in Latinx countries. And it was amazing. Not only was it fun to listen to, but you could hear the scholarly rigor that he brought to that program. Something else that we're pretty much known for on campus is our programming. And our programming happens on a small scale, and some of our students will be able to talk about the smaller scale. Hi, Amara. Smaller scale programming. We have 3 students who actually represent major groups and clubs in CAMD, and they'll give you some of those details. And then we do programs for the entire school. So right now I can see that Alianza, AFLAN-M, AMP are all represented here. Those are 3 of our large groups, and they serve a large portion of particularly our Black and Brown students here at PA. But our largest program of the year, and one that was for many, many years, pretty much what CAMD was known for, now we're known for so much more, is our MLK Day program, which we are actually right in the midst of planning for. And it takes a lot of bandwidth, it takes a lot of bodies and a lot of thought. And right now we're doing that. That is a great day for us. It's a day on. Students, we have, I'll give you, I'm gonna talk a little bit about this, and then I'll be done with my description, and anything that I'm missing, I'm gonna throw the ball over to Jessica and let her talk a little bit more about scholarships. But for MLK Day, we call it a day on. We're pretty much busy from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And at the beginning of that day, we have a major speaker. This year, our speaker we're excited to have here is Eddie Glau Jr. He is a public intellectual. He's also a professor at Princeton, and he's written several books, but we will be reading as a community a few of his books, one that speaks about Baldwin and another one that's called Democracy in Black. And both of them were published in the past 5 years. So we're really excited about having him here. And then we have a freshman program where some of our students put on an identity play. And in this identity play, they talk about who they are on this campus in relation to this campus and what it feels like to be a marginalized person. Our freshmen always, what we call juniors, they always attend that program on MLK Day. And our sophomores or our lowers are going to be in a discussion about social media and looking at social media with 2 sets of eyes, one that's placed in the past and one that's in the present. So I'm really excited about that. We have a Harvard professor coming in to do that particular program. Our uppers and our seniors, or our juniors and our seniors, as you probably know, in different schools, they actually do their own workshops, and they offer their own workshops to other seniors and juniors. And I'm excited about that because we have over 30, and we have some teachers who also are doing those workshops. And we have over 30 projects that have been proposed that we just kind of looked through today. So I'm real excited because we have everything that spans issues around race, environmental racism, economic racism, anything you could think about, trans issues, issues around gendered pronouns. We have a lot going on. So that is what we're getting ready for now. I think that's all I have to say in terms of an introduction of CAMD, but I'm really excited about your questions and about hearing from the students too. And Jessica.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tsemo. That was a lot. And then I hope that gives folks a little bit of a sense of all the things that go on through CAMD and in our campus. I think also just, and I will have the students kind of share their experiences with CAMD as well, but CAMD is all things, and it can be whatever you want it to be too, including a space to just be with people and hang out and grab some snacks. And I love that we're back in person where you could see folks actually using this space again as just a great just community space for all of our students. So I'm really excited to just see CAMD buzzing again now that we're back in person this year. So I'm going to pass it on to TI, who's going to start off our student introductions. And as folks hear from our students, if you have questions, you can start to type them in the Q&A feature of our Zoom, and we'll try to get through as many of those questions as we can tonight. So TI.
I love this part. I love our students. Dr. Tsemo, I just need to say, like when I was here, a student here, like CAMD was amazing, but it was also a place where I went and got lotion if I needed it, right?
We still have lotion.
Okay, good.
Yes, and hot water.
Okay, good. I like that. All right. So we're gonna move on to our panelists, and I'll let you guys. So we'll start with you, Chris, and then you'll call on one of your peers, and we'll introduce all four of you guys. So what we're gonna ask for is tell us your name, pronouns, hometown, the year you are at school, and what you do on campus, and sort of your connection to CAMD. And I know that's a lot, and I think I put it in the chat so you can remember it. And then the last thing you got to remember is call on somebody else, okay? All right, you go start us out, Chris.
Okay, hi, my name is Christopher. I go by Chris, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm from Queens, New York. I'm class of 23, so I'm an upper, aka like 11th grade. And then on campus, in relation to like CAMD, I'm part of AFLAT-AM, and then I'm also I'm part of AMP, and also I work with like Mosaic at times, and also I'm like part of Mosaic's mentorship program too. So I also work with Mosaic, which is like the mixed affinity. I'll call on Paul Kishna.
Hello, my name is Paul Kishna. I am a senior from Brockton, Massachusetts. My pronouns are she, hers, and on campus, I'm a calculus peer tutor, an advertising manager for our student newspaper, The Philippian, and one of the co-presidents of AFLAT-AM. And I'll pass it down to Amara.
And Paul Kishna, you forgot the best thing. You live in my dorm.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Amara, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amara. I use she, hers pronouns. I'm from Chandler, Arizona. I'm a senior, so class of 22. On campus, I'm a Blue Key head. I do photography, so I work with the Philippian, F-Stop, which is a photography magazine on campus. I do Mod UN. I'm one of the co-presidents of that. I do quite a lot with the dance department, hip hop, Afro-Caribbean, step. Yeah, and my connection to CAMD is that I am one of the coordinators for the AFLAT-AM mentorship program. So the mentorship program for like underrepresented students of color on this campus. And then I'll hand it off to Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia. I am a lower, which is like a 10th grader from the Bronx, New York. I use she, they pronouns. I am on the Alianza board, which is the affinity space for Latinx people on campus. And some things I do in camp, I'm on the board for that. And I also participate in some of the photography clubs, but not on the board for that. And right now I'm on the wrestling team, and we actually just had we're starting like having meets, which is exciting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So what we'll do is we'll take some questions from the Q&A, and then I'll maybe have like two kids answer each question so we can get through as many questions as possible. So I'll start with you, Julia. I think you were the last one to speak. So how has being a part of CAMD sort of shaped your overall experience as an Andover student?
I think at first it definitely helped me to just adjust to Andover in general, because I went to a public school for middle school and elementary school, so it was a much different environment. And I think out of like all the groups on campus, people in CAMD understood what that felt like the most. So CAMD just made it easier to adjust to Andover and have a space where it felt more like home from the beginning.
And I saw you sort of nodding your head, Marquishna, like maybe you were snapping to Julia's answer, but I didn't know if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, for sure. I share like the same sentiments because went to like public schools for most of my life that were also like predominantly Black. And I'm like from like a working class community too. But I would say here at PA, it's very, very different. The average student here comes from like an upper middle class background. And it is not majority Black, it's predominantly white. So coming in here when I was, cause I was like a new lower, coming in here as a new lower, I definitely felt like an alien for like the first half of that year, but like CAMD really gave me a community when I like desperately needed one. But yeah.
Thank you so much. Dr. Tsemo. So I always say this, like being a diverse school, it's challenging, but it's easier than people think it is. Like we're gonna have people from all over the world, all over the different socioeconomic backgrounds, but it's one thing to have a diverse sort of group of kids at a school. So can you sort of talk about how CAMD helps those kids feel like they belong here, how make sure they feel like they sort of the inclusion part of DEI, right?
Yeah, I like what you said at the right after I finished talking. Like I used to come in there so that I could have, some, what did you say, candy? Or one of the ways I think that on a very base level that people feel like they belong is that they feel a space where there's a space they can go to where they can be themselves and bring their whole selves. And whatever that means, what I've really learned being in this role which has been really great for me, is being in a classroom, students are so much more PC. And they may sometimes, think I'll think about that, or maybe I'll say that after class. That is not what you get in a CAMD, right? Students will talk about issues that really matter to them. And I've grown in 2 months because I haven't had those kinds of encounters on a regular basis in a steady stream, right? As a teacher, you get some of it, but you don't get all of it. Well, you get all of it in a space like this. You hear about the things that really matters. And what I find is that students really look for each other in students who don't look like them when you come to CAMD, because they know that if those students have walked into this space, then they're open and ready for anything that comes their way. So we've often been called a very nice and polite school. Students still have a great manners, but they will definitely say or talk about or bring up issues that are important to them and to their cohort and to their generation. So I really appreciate that every day when I'm in this office. It's like a new office every day because of things like that. I think inclusion is about feeling that way.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, let's go with you, Chris. There was a question about the food. How do you feel about the food in Paresky Dining Hall?
I wouldn't say it's like bad. There's a lot of options too, so like you're always bound to hopefully find something that you can eat.
I'm gonna say this, Chris. I love the food, especially working here. It's free, it's really good, and I don't have to cook. That's the best part about it. All right, so can you all talk about like how you sort of were introduced to CAMD and how you sort of found your way to that part of the school when you first got here? We'll start with you. Go ahead, Chris. I see you raising your hand. And then we'll go with you, Amar.
At least for me, just because like initially like at the start of the school year, I think most like affinity groups at least like usually have like a list of students that identify within that sort of group. And they like send out an email being like, oh, we're having our first meeting. And then just because I had like a lot of friends, or like at least like I was like, I should check this out considering like the environment that Andover is being like predominantly white. So then that's like how I sort of like got introduced to it, and I like went. And just because like the environment was so friendly and like relatable and just like overall like comforting, especially at Andover when you're like initially adjusting. Like for me, I came in as like a freshman, so it was like pretty like everybody else was sort of adjusting, so like we kind of adjusted together and to each other essentially through these spaces, which like made it like life at Andover much easier.
Go ahead, Amar.
Personally, I didn't like seek out CAMD initially, but that was just because like my hometown is predominantly white. So I guess just like coming from a background of like internalized racism and like always like kind of shying away from my identity. I didn't seek out CAMD, but I got really lucky with the dorm that I got placed in, which was Stimson, gotta represent. And there was just a lot of like seniors who were already involved in CAMD, and a lot of the other lowers who already lived there, because I was a new lower, were already involved in CAMD. And I was just like sucked in by association. And I think even though I like tried to shy away from it, as everyone's been saying, the community that CAMD brings you and just the pride in my identity that CAMD brought me was just too much for me to like try to shy away from it and try to like suppress that anymore. So I think that's why like was how I was introduced and like why I stayed. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Tsemo, there was a question about the represent AAPIs. Are there any AAPI student reps or affinity groups for Asian students in Camden? Can you talk a little bit about that? You're muted, Dr. Tsemo.
Good question. We have several groups that are that serve AAPI students. We have groups that serve, at least 2 groups that serve Chinese students. We have a group that serves Korean students. We have actually South Asian students who have their own group as well. Am I missing anyone? So we have about 4 groups right now that are active. And right now they're also looking to bring speakers here for AAPI month. So yes, very active AAPI students.
Thank you so much. We'll go to you, Julia. Can you talk about, and this is subjective, but what's like the coolest thing, or talk about an experience that you really appreciated while you've been here at Andover, other than like meeting me, which is always really cool, right? But something outside of that.
I think there's like just been a lot of, especially this year, like last year it was mostly online. So like I had online expectations for this year, even though I knew like things were going to be in person. And then this year, like AE, for example, like I like was in a program from New York, so I knew a bunch of kids from Exeter. So like, and I haven't seen them since like before COVID. So getting to see them again, getting to go to another school, getting to watch just sports games, getting to see everything that Andover has without like watching it through Zoom or on a video, was very fun. And also like a lot of the student presentations, I guess I've heard about them from like other people talking about them in the presentations that I went to while applying to Andover, but I don't think I like recognized how big of a deal they were and how long they took, and also just how interesting they were. Getting to watch those too. And also there's a lot of things. And just getting to meet people, because I mean, I knew coming here there was going to be people from a lot of different backgrounds, but like I don't think I fully understand what that meant until like actually experiencing it.
Thank you so much. Paul Keachner, do you want to take that one? I saw you raise your hand right before I was about to call.
Yeah. So on the topic of like, the coolest things we've tried. So when I was a new student here, like my lower year, I tried rowing, crew, just because like it looked so nice in the YouTube videos that I would watch. And I really underestimated how difficult it was, but I tried it and it was really fun, physically taxing, but overall really fun. And the year after that, I enrolled in the outdoor pursuits program at PA, and I got to go hiking and camping, which are things that like I had never done before. And they were also like surprisingly pretty like nice things to do. Like I didn't think I would like enjoy them that much, but I decided to like try them out just because a friend recommended it to me, and turns out it was really nice. But I would say like, I guess the most unique thing I've tried or have done here is the astronomy research elective with Miss Odin. And I was actually able to like measure the rotational periods of like 2 asteroids, and the work in that class actually like got published. So that was really nice. But yeah, there's like there are so many opportunities here. And there are like so many different things for you to try. So yeah, I'm glad that like I had like this opportunity in the first place. But
And I'll go one more. Chris, you want to go? I like that question. So you want to take that one, please?
Sure. So I think at Andover, like going back about like identity and etc. Like for MLK Day, this year I'm part of like the cast for the identity show that's like performing this year. So like honestly, like last term we had like a showing, and it was just like kind of like a mock show of like what the show would like be in like K Day, and then so like performing that was honestly I would say probably one of the coolest moments, just because like it's like one part as like I worked the whole term kind of like creating pieces about like my identity in terms of like for me, I talked about like family, and like what that means to me, and like what it has meant like growing up, coming from like a lower class family, and etc. And then just being able to like perform that to like in front of my friends who like I may not normally say or express that to, or just like overall like putting that outside of myself and performing that, I think was definitely probably the coolest. And like just like the support that you get like at the end of the show too was like really nice.
Thank you so much. Dr. Tsemo, I think, you know, we sort of are in our Andover bubble, and we do the best we can to sort of support our students here, but like things happen outside of that bubble that affect our students, right? And I feel like they want us to do stuff about it. Can you sort of talk about how we respond to like events that happen outside? And I'm going to throw a big one out at you, like, you know, George Floyd or some of the other things that have happened, you know, around the world, and how we sort of are able to, our students really push us to sort of, you know, do something when those things happen, please.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the pandemic there were 2 pandemics that happened at the same time, our racial pandemic and a health pandemic. And students here learn about the world all the time in ways that seem abstract until it's not. And last year, our students woke a lot of us up. And it was, of course, happening across the nation, where students were able to see how racism plays itself out on a regular basis in our country. And our students called us to task, you know, and they insisted that we pay attention to what's really going on. Because of that, there was a lot of schools had Black @, but we did have our own Black @ accounts. And that was really useful because our adults really read those Black @ comments and really tried to respond. We're not perfect. We're still responding to some of those issues, but I was on the adult end of it. And I know that adults were feeling very responsible for a lot of those incidents. And some of those things did get dealt with, and we're still dealing with others. We have an anti-racist task force that is actually run by our associate head of school. And some of the issues around what's going on in the world found itself in that among that cohort of adults. And we interviewed the entire school to try to find out what it is we need to do better in order for adults and for students to feel like this was their space. Belonging is a big issue right now. So it's like all of that preceded that idea of belonging. I think that this year students are recovering from a lot of that, and we're really working on, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of working on rebuilding themselves and centering themselves and their mental health. It took a big mental health toll on our students, and we continue to be supportive of them. So the outside spurred them to want to do some activism and to respond to the larger issues last year. And this year, they're being active and being activists for themselves and their own mental health. And we're supporting all of those efforts. This office is for students, and I saw some questions asking about biracial students, asking about Asian students. I'm sorry if I didn't represent all of that in my talk, but if you are really interested in seeing our scope, you can go to our website, and all of our student groups are listed there, and all of them are active. I have all of the receipts to account for that. They're all active, they're all doing things, they're all doing affinity things, and they continue whatever they need, because this office is for students, whatever they need, whether it be something they need to deal with outside of this space or inside of this space, we are supportive of that.
Thank you so much. And you talk about sort of those big picture things, but I just remember, like, that was the place where I said, listen, I need a haircut and I can't go to the barbershop downtown, right? Or, you know, I went to CAMD when my daughter was here, and I needed to get her hair braided, right? Because I knew that was a place where I can get my daughter's hair braided. And there's certain issues that affect, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, T.I. I was gonna say, you know, and I'm assuming that all of us on this call are folks of color, right? You know, marginalized folks. One thing I can say we all have in common is taking care of one another sometimes does not enter into formal conversation because we expect that of ourselves. And so I will begin by saying that sometimes I don't talk about that, but I think students will be able to say, you know, those moments happen all the time. How are you? What's going on? What do you need? Talking about conversations about people's families, or, you know, if students need something. That I had a student who was like, I need some I need some to do some artwork, and I need some supplies. I'm like, we got you. You know, so there's also that kind of, those kind of unspoken things that happen in this office. A hug. We can still hug in the 21st century. We can still hug during COVID with masks on, or students just saying, I'm just having a bad day. I'm like, there's hot chocolate up there, or there's what are those candies that y'all like a lot? Those like gummy candies. Anyway, high chews. There's some high chews here. There's some chocolate candy here. We have tea. We have soft sofas. So now they're like, we can wipe them up because I got new coverings for the sofas, but trust me, folks are sleeping on the sofa. So we do have, it's a very family oriented space. We have a whiteboard that students like erase and write on when they feel like they put anything up there. We have representations of students around here. We have student art up. Right. So yes, this is, I wish I could show you a picture of our space, but it's also tonight, we're actually hosting a dinner, and we moved everything around so we can have we're gonna have some barbecue. So sorry, y'all can't be here, but, but there's always good food. Y'all got to give us the high, you know, each one of these groups, AMP always puts AMP, Flat AMP, Alianza, Food Mosaic. There's always good food. So yeah, we do that too, T.
I love it. I love it. All right. So last question I'll ask you, and sort of keep it brief because we're sort of running up against time. But we'll start with the first person on my screen I can see is Julia. So what is the most sort of rewarding aspect of having such a diverse group of people at Andover, you know, from your experience? And then we'll go with you, Chris, and then Amara, and then Parkeisha. All right.
As a new student, like I think a bunch of us have said before, it makes adjusting easier, but also going through Andover, I saw a question about like people who don't necessarily support CAMD and its mission. Like those students are at Andover. And I like just in your daily life in your sports teams, and certain bad things do happen. And for me, at least, the affinity space I'm a part of makes it, or gives me a space where I can talk about those things, whether it's just like anything bad, even if it doesn't have to do with race. Like it's a space where you can talk about pretty everything difficult, because there is typically somebody who somehow relates to you. And that's not necessarily something that schools that are less diverse can say. So it just gives you a space where you feel at home, which is very important, especially when you're not actually at home.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
For me, I would say it's like the amount of diversity in terms of like student body. It's like you get to interact with like many like students and cultures that you would not normally too, and at the same time, it like forces you to, like, not necessarily forces you, but like encourages you to be like a better person in terms of like mindfulness and consciousness of like who you surround yourself with and like the ways you like interact with that, and like overall like awareness of like issues at hand, and like sensitivity, I would say, is like very like important at Andover. And like just being able to like have diversity there is like what helps you improve that.
Go ahead, Amara. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Julie.
I think we've mentioned a lot about how CAMD brings us comfort, but CAMD has also brought me discomfort, but like in the best way. CAMD has taught me to not only examine my own privilege of like being at the school, but just like any privilege that I have. And I didn't realize how much privilege I had being like able-bodied, or like my socioeconomic status, and things that you think are just super normal, and things that are super normalized at CAMD, not at CAMD, like at Andover, or just like in your home life. You come here and you're like, oh wow, there's so much more to like my world. And not only meeting people from other backgrounds, but like having conversations with faculty, and just interacting with like the upperclassmen, like especially like interacting with the upperclassmen for me, and having those uncomfortable conversations where you have to examine like what you came into this school with, and your bubble, I guess. And CAMD has really just pushed me to step beyond myself, and not only to think about things beyond myself, but to get involved with things beyond myself, and learn how to be an advocate as a teenager, and learn how to be an advocate for other groups that might not be able to advocate for themselves. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Pakisha.
I mean, I feel like the past three panelists have like said everything, but yeah, like Chris said, you'll meet like all different types of people here. And what I've found most surprising is that I've been able to form these beautiful relationships with people who've lived lives so different from my own, which was like a major shocker to me, but something that like I hold dearly. So
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you joining us. And people ask me a lot, like, why do you love working at Andover so much? And there are a lot of reasons why I love working at Andover, but these 4 students are a big reason. And students like them, they inspire me. So I'm so thankful that they were able to join us. So Jessica, I should pass it to you, right?
Yes. Thank you, TI, and thank you to our amazing students and Dr. Tsemo for joining us today. I know today there was a lot of stuff actually going on campus, and I appreciate you folks making the time to join us and share a little bit about CAMD and your experiences with our prospective students and families. I hope that was helpful to our audience. And if there are questions after today, feel free to email us in the admission office at admissions.andover.edu. We'll be able to follow up with any other questions that we didn't get a chance to answer today. But thank you again to Dr. Tsemo, to our students, and we will finish off our event today and wish you all a good rest of your evening. So thank you all again for coming. All right, bye everyone. Bye, Mara. Bye. Thank you.